If you spent any amount of time scrolling through the furry side of Twitter or browsing fur affinity comments, you've probably witnessed it firsthand. Heated arguments about art, call-out posts with dozens of replies, or entire friend groups splitting apart over disagreements that seem to spiral out of control within hours. The furry fandom, despite being built on creativity and self-expression, has this ongoing issue with conflict that sometimes feels like it's tearing the community apart from the inside. I wanted to look into this because understanding what conflict actually means in our space, how it starts, and most importantly, how we might prevent it, could genuinely help make the fandom a healthier place for everyone involved. So, before we dive into some of the more infamous examples and what we can learn from them, let me start by breaking down what we actually mean when we talk about conflict in the furry fandom. When researchers from Fur Science asked furries about the most contentious issues in the fandom, conflict and drama consistently ranked near the top of concerns. The specific complaint was usually phrased as, "there's too much drama and conflict within the fandom," whether that's between subgroups, within local furry communities, or just the general atmosphere of constant arguments online. But what exactly counts as conflict versus just normal disagreement? In the context of online communities, conflict typically escalates beyond simple differences of opinion into something far more damaging. Public callouts, harassment campaigns, friend group fractures, or situations where people feel genuinely unsafe participating within the community. Research on fandom spaces has found that most problematic encounters involve communication issues rather than actual ideological differences. Things like miscommunication, defensiveness, differences of opinion that weren't properly discussed, and boundary policing where people try to control how others engage within the fandom. To understand how bad it can get, we need to look into some of the major conflicts that have shaped the fandom's history. One of the most notorious is Rainforest in 2015, which became a cautionary tale about what happens when convention management fails to handle problematic behavior. The convention, which already developed a reputation for being where furries banned from other cons would attend, descended into chaos with reports of property damage, public intoxication, drug-related arrests, and behavior so extreme that the hotel refused to host them ever again. What made Rainforest particularly significant wasn't just the bad behavior itself, but how it reinforced negative stereotypes about the fandom and created lasting division between furries who wanted stricter community standards and those who felt the fandom should be more permissive. The convention never recovered and became a sort of legendary disaster story that new furries still hear about years later. Then there's the Burned Furs movement from 1998 to 2001, which was essentially an internal culture war about the fandom's content and public image. Founded by furries who felt the community was being overrun by dysfunctional, socially stunted, and creatively bankrupt. The movement tried to pressure the fandom into being more family-friendly and less openly. This created massive rifts within the community, and the conflict was so intense that many prominent furries left the fandom entirely to avoid the backlash. More recently, there's been ongoing conflict around furries and alt-right infiltration of the community. Groups like the Furry Raiders, who wore modified armbands resembling Nazi symbols, created situations where conventions had to decide whether to ban them, which then sparked debates about free speech versus community safety. This culminated in Rocky Mountain FurCon shutting down in 2017 after the convention chairman resigned amid controversy over how these groups were being handled, showing how ideological conflicts can literally end major community institutions. So if we look at patterns across these conflicts and smaller everyday dramas, how do they typically begin? One major trigger is call-out culture and public accusations. Someone makes a post claiming another community member did something wrong, and instead of handling it privately, it becomes a public spectacle where everyone feels obligated to take sides. The furry community's emphasis on visibility visibility and social media presence means these callouts spread incredibly fast and can destroy someone's reputation within hours. Another common starting point is ideological or identity-based disagreements that get personal. The furry fandom is overwhelmingly LGBTQ+ and has strong progressive values, which means when someone expresses views that contradict those values, whether that be about religion, politics, or social issues, it can quickly escalate from "I disagree with your opinion" to "you're a bigot who shouldn't be in this community." The situation with artist Lupus Volpes, who declined to draw trans pride flag art due to being a devout Christian, demonstrated how quickly these disagreements can explode into a massive community-wide conflict. Clout dynamics and power imbalances also play a huge role in how drama starts and spreads. Popular artists or fursuiters with large followings can weaponize their audience against smaller creators, and the algorithms on platforms like Twitter amplify controversial content, which means drama gets more engagement than positive posts. This creates an environment where some people actually benefit from starting or participating in conflicts because it increases their visibility. There's also what researchers call fractured fandom, when people have fundamentally different ideas about what the fandom should be, and those differences can't easily be reconciled. Some furries want it to be a family-friendly creative hobby, others see it as an adult space for expression, some view it as a queer sanctuary, while others want to keep politics out entirely. What makes conflict particularly difficult to resolve in the furry fandom is how online spaces create echo chambers that intensify opinions and shut down alternative perspectives. When you disagree with your friend group about something, there's often social pressure to either fall in line with the group's consensus or leave the group entirely. This means people rarely get exposed to genuine good faith disagreement that might help them reconsider their position. The fandom's loose structure actually contributes to this problem, because there's no central authority or unified belief system. If you get kicked out of one group, you just shift sideways into another group that's okay with your behavior. On one hand, this means most people can find their community somewhere within the fandom, but on the other hand, it means there's no real incentive to change problematic behavior or try to understand people you disagree with. Social media algorithms make this worse by showing you content similar to what you've already engaged with, and controversy gets more engagement than positive content. So, if you've clicked on drama posts before, you're going to see more drama, which makes the fandom feel more conflict-ridden than it might actually be. It's like a negativity feedback loop, where the drama becomes the main thing you see, even though most furries are just quietly making art and having fun. So, knowing all this, how can we actually prevent conflicts from spiraling out of control? One of the most important strategies is establishing and enforcing clear community guidelines before problems occur. This means having transparent rules about acceptable behavior, consequences for violations, and consistent enforcement that doesn't play favorites based on someone's popularity or friend connections. Another crucial approach is encouraging private resolution before public callouts. Obviously, if someone's done something genuinely harmful that puts others at risk, public warnings make sense. But for most disagreements, reaching out directly to the person first, explaining the issue, and giving them a chance to respond or correct the situation prevents the public pile-on effect. We also need better digital literacy around how to engage with conflict when it does happen. This includes things like not automatically believing every call-out post without evidence, recognizing when you're being pulled into drama that doesn't actually involve you, and understanding the difference between someone making a mistake versus someone being genuinely harmful. The furry fandom tends to treat everything as equally serious, which makes it hard to respond proportionally. Creating spaces that acknowledge different preferences can also reduce conflict. Having some conventions or Discord servers that are strictly safe for work, while others are adult only, or having channels specifically for venting with clear rules, and generally recognizing that not every furry space needs to cater to everyone's preferences. The conflict often comes from trying to force one unified standard on a diverse community. So, after looking into all of this, I think what becomes clear is that conflict in the furry fandom isn't going away entirely. It's kind of an inevitable part of any community made up of diverse people with strong opinions. But the way we handle that conflict makes all the difference between a community that's occasionally messy but fundamentally healthy versus one that's constantly eating itself alive with drama. From the examples we looked at earlier, it's clear that unresolved conflict can literally destroy institutions and drive good people away from the community. But they also show patterns we can learn from, the importance of clear standards, the danger of letting problems fester, and how public spectacle usually makes things worse rather than better. Anyway, the real challenge is getting enough people to commit to a healthier conflict resolution that actually shifts the culture, because right now the incentives often reward drama rather than discourage it. I'd love to know what you think about all of this in the comment section below, or you can start a conversation on my Discord server at dsc.gg/skikes. And with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day.